I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is In Flames Colony. I'm actually very, very excited for this song. I'm actually...
Looks like it's alive, too. So.
Yes, it's alive. I'm actually an In Flames fan.
Oh,
I went
really?
through this period, I don't know how many years ago, where there was like 2 or 3 In Flames songs, because you know how I am, I listen to the same song 800,000 times. Mm-hmm. And I like they've got a cool little unique style there. So I'm very excited to actually hear what these brothers are about to put down for us, because it's going to be good.
Yeah, this is from Andreas. He picked this song for us to react to specifically for him. The way that you can get a song reaction done, there's a couple different ways, varying in in commitment. The first one, which is the one that Andreas picked, is you can jump on our, what'd you call it? He just named it.
It's the Backstage Fast
Pass. If you want to do that one, it's $125 your first, second, and third time. But then after that, it jumps you to $75. So if you have a bunch of them, you
stay there forever.
So Andreas has been working with us for a while. So this is the song that he picked. Another way of getting it reacted to, which is kind of Vin's favorite way, is you join an alliance. You go onto Patreon. It can be as little as $1 a month, $5, it doesn't really matter. You jump on, and then you get into an alliance, and from that alliance, you get to influence the songs that will be on our upcoming list. They also have other things, like that's not even the major thing. Like they do D&D, they do Minecraft, they get together, they have conversations about debates about things, all kinds of different stuff. It's a very, very active forum on Discord. And then a third way is comment section, live streams, any of our socials. You can just put your stuff out there. I've been seeing Gigi Allen a lot.
Yeah.
And as soon as we're able to kind of fit some space in there, I would like to do it because I've seen it so much.
Well, Zonia was like, you need to talk to me before you do the Gigi Allen thing.
Oh no.
Yeah. There's also a what do you call it? It's this comedian guy on religion that a lot of people have been asking us to do too.
Oh.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. But
yeah.
Anyway, that's not what we're doing today. Today we're doing In Flames Colony. And let's see what we got here. Also,
George Carlin.
If you're into political stuff or political something commentary, go ahead, say it, baby.
Timely topical political commentary. You can hit us in Middle America, Vin and Sori. I usually don't tell people what the next episode is going to be about, but the next episode, I'm currently in the research phase of checking out what folks are actually meaning when they say defund the police.
I think that's an important.
I haven't completely come on one side or on the other, but
if you want to find out more about that, check out that on
that's
the channel.
coming in. That's coming either today or I don't know when we're going to publish this video. So
yep.
Anyway, let's go.
The links are in the description.
In Flames Colony.
Yes.
Oh man, I think this is a band we've got to see.
Oh,
See them
absolutely.
live.
I'm at that point in my pregnancy where my stomach is very upset, and like headbanging was like upsetting my stomach more. But I was like, but I want to so badly.
I love like big stadium looking things, but that small intimate club vibe where everybody's just you know, and you can see all that because the thing is, like, when you go to a show and there's like 20,000 people, you probably have like 600 people really rocking. But the thing is so big, sometimes it looks like the band is not having that effect.
Yeah, that's true.
But then you could have like 200 people in a small club, and you know the band is getting the energy they deserve. And that is what I like about this.
Good energy. Good vibe.
Yeah. This is good. So
this guy, he has tattoos like Tigger.
yes. I was actually a little bit surprised at the lyrical content because these guys, the 2 or 3 songs that I heard from them were like very personal, like, you know, whatever, and this seemed to be a science fiction kind of concept record, maybe, you know, because like if you look at the picture, there's like this humanoid thing coming out of this, you know, thing, but it's like a mixture of, you know, and he said like a mixture of metal and meat or whatever. He said that machine, meat and blood in an intimate relationship or whatever. And then he talks about when we can no longer cry and reality is torn, and it's easy to forget that the responsibility lies on us all. So it's kind of like the turning human beings into like being devoid of emotion and having that machine. Yeah. You know, the melding of man and machine type of thing is what it looked like. So I was surprised at that because I thought it was going to be about like his own.
And it said genetic superior cell.
Yeah.
Controlled by the fathomless and unbearable. Like it seems like this character is controlled by hell itself, because at the end he talks about in your world the night is no threat. In my world the darkness transforms to a vision of hell populated by fathomless and unbearable. So.
And who is the you there is a very interesting concept. Like when he says in your world, like who's he talking to?
I think he's talking to that character. The genetic.
Yeah, and then I think to myself, what if he
biologically optimized?
What if the human side of him is talking to the machine side of himself? See what I'm saying? Because it's this marriage.
Yeah, that's true.
Machine, meat and blood in an intimate relationship.
The new superior,
more effective than all the preceding.
Yeah.
So it's the machine side of himself who feels nothing and fears nothing, but then there's still the human side of him, which is still caught up in that, which is a pretty nightmarish thing to think through.
Yeah.
And so now you've got like this divided person that's having to navigate in this dystopian future. But and it's a sort of like looks like a eugenic experiment here, a genetic superior cell. Controlled by the fathomless and unbearable. That's interesting. Okay, so in the first verse, the last line in the first verse is controlled by the fathomless and unbearable, and then the last line in the actual song
I literally just said that
is populated by fathomless and unbearable.
Yes, I said he was being controlled by the hell, the people in hell, or the creatures in hell.
No,
the vision of hell populated by fathomless and unbearable.
No, you're missing the point. Here it says controlled by the fathomless and unbearable, and at the end it says populated by the fathomless and unbearable.
Oh, okay, I see where you're going.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and then genetic superior cell, and then if you look to a vision of hell. So sometimes when you're writing, you put things on top of each other and then you decide to space them out. So it looks like that's probably what happened here, because cell rhymes with hell, and then it's populated by the fathomless and unbearable. But here it's controlled by the fathomless and unbearable. So I don't know. Maybe the fathomless and the unbearable is the evil people who constructed this thing in the first place. But then by the end of it, the whole world seems to be populated by those types of people, because they were able to whatever.
If you're controlled by the fathomless and unbearable, if that's what controls you, and then in the end it says populated by fathomless and unbearable, it's that all these characters are controlled by the fathomless and unbearable, and now it's basically the world is populated by them because you're controlled by them.
Yeah, but it depends on like this is probably a concept record.
Yeah,
what is the
that's what I was gonna
fathomless
look.
and unbearable? Are you saying fathomless evil and unbearable evil, which works, right? Evil
Yeah.
being fathomless and unbearable, or are you talking about something else? We'd have to listen to the entire record to get full context, but
Look, 13 is man-made God.
yeah. So to me, it looks like some dude figured out, hey, because there was this movie one time called Universal Soldier, and Universal Soldier was that. It was like this melding of man and machine, and he was whatever, and then RoboCop. So like we've had instances of that. In the RoboCop scenario, it was really interesting. It was presented as a good thing, although he became like a tragic hero. But the fact that he had that combination was presented as a good thing. Whereas in this world, the people that do that are pretty much madmen and insane and crazy. And, this is what we're talking about a couple reviews ago with the whole concept of bioethics.
Yeah.
Like, that discipline arose because you're trying to figure out what are the lines that we're not supposed to cross. And the whole concept of playing God and things like that, and like what are the lines we're not supposed to cross, and especially after World War II when the realizations came out about what the Germans were doing, experimenting on Jews. Of course, that happened to Black Americans as well, where Black Americans were given syphilis and then watched and tracked their whole life. So you always have these crazy people, and that's just the stuff we know about. That's
right,
the stuff that's out and released to the public. So that's what happens, like when you don't have a moral backstop to the scientific endeavor, because the thing is, like, and I understand how you could end up being a mad scientist, because the more and more you figure out how the world works, the more and more you're able to say, well, what if we did X, Y, and Z?
And the thing is, you could make like 1 or 10 or 100 people super uncomfortable under a torturous situation.
Right.
But then it could end up helping like lots of people.
Correct.
So like if you come from a scientific mindset and people don't have, like, coming from a Christian perspective, people have value outside of what they can offer.
Right.
So you can't just strip somebody of that value and use them as an experiment. Because they have value. Like you can't do that. But if you don't have that mindset that people are given, value and honor that comes from God, and that can't be stripped away from them, then you could say, well, I mean, survival of the fittest. You're
breaking a few eggs to make an omelet.
Right. Yeah. Right.
The Tuskegee experiment.
And at the end of the day, we're all animals.
It was a 40-year experiment with 600 black folks from Macon County, Alabama. And there you go. And so, like,
that's crazy.
What are the backstops? How do you stop that? How do you say it's wrong? I mean,
what's interesting about that? So they were checking. What were they doing? They were testing to see what happens.
We injected them with syphilis or whatever. They gave them syphilis, and then they were watching to see
what would happen.
During and after the
syphilis, it's predominantly black people that have that issue, correct?
And watch this. During and after the American Civil War, African Americans were argued to be a different species from white American, and mixed-race children were presumed prone to have many medical issues. Doctors at the time testified that the emancipation of slaves had caused the mental, moral, and physical deterioration of the black population, observing that, virtually free of disease as slaves, they were now overwhelmed by it. Many believed that the African Americans were doomed to extinction, and arguments were made about their psychology being unsuited for the colder climates of America, yada yada yada. Scientific and medical authorities of the late 19th and early 20th centuries held extremely harmful pseudoscientific ideas, specifically about the sex drives and genitals of African American. Well, they're saying it's pseudoscientific, but as I said in the previous review, these were peer-reviewed documents that were vetted by other scientists, and then... So this is why I always challenge people with stuff like, hey, wait a second, think this through. If the scientific community is the top pinnacle of everything, and that's how we should guide that's everything that should guide our worldview comes from the scientific community, then if you were in the late 19th and early 20th century, you would have said that African Americans are a different species of human, and if that's the case, then you can experiment on them, because I mean, more specifically, black people were basically one of the missing links between Neanderthal and the white man, and blacks were closer to apes than humans, and that was the highest echelon of scientists were saying that at the time. And those were peer-reviewed documents. I always have people, oh, science has peer review. Yes, they do. And you had peer-reviewed documents from the 19th and 20th centuries that were saying that, which opened the door for these crazy people to start experimenting on us. So, I'm sorry, but those are facts. Now, I'm not saying that...
Some of the stuff in that article is so offensive. Unbelievable.
Well, and again, you know, this is the Office for Science and Society. But if you want to know whether or not these were peer-reviewed documents, send me an email. I'll send you the proof. It's factual. Those are facts. And so, but this is what I mean by bioethics, where, like I said, science can only tell us what's in the physical world, and that has nothing to do with morality. Morality is part of the metaphysical world. So science can't tell us a damn thing about the metaphysical world. And so these two disciplines have to operate together.
Right.
But, you know, like, and I think you can go overboard on both sides. Now, this is going to be controversial, but there's lots of religious people that are anti-vaxxers.
Oh.
And look, we've got generations of documentation that the stuff works. Like, you don't know anybody that has polio. So I'm not saying I'm surrendering. Aren't you surrendering your mind to the scientific community? Nope, because I'm looking at the fact that we virtually eliminated polio, rubella, mumps, measles. Like, people aren't dying from these things anymore. What was the variable? Obviously, it's vaccines. So if you're a religious person, which religion functions from the metaphysical perspective, and you don't look at the science, you don't have your metaphysics informed by science, then you end up harming people. Conversely, if you only focused on science and you don't have a metaphysical morality structure, you end up harming people. And so you've got religious people who've completely surrendered their minds to their religious leaders. And when I say religious leader, I don't mean necessarily their local pastor, but their favorite Christian conspiracy theorist who says that, you know, vaccines are the beginning of the mark of the beast. Like, I'm seeing all these things about, oh, there's going to be a corona vaccine and it's going to be the mark of the beast.
No
and that,
way,
oh,
really?
yeah.
Wow.
So these people have completely surrendered their mind to their religious authority. And then you've got people over here who've completely surrendered their mind to scientific authority. And I'm sorry, my friend, but if you're one of those people that holds the scientific community as the ultimate determiner of reality, then there was no way to protect yourself against being a racist in the early 19th and 20th century. It's impossible. These were peer-reviewed documents. And then if you can do that, if you can convince a person that these people are you know, some in-between transitional factor between ape and human, then you can experiment on them. Why not?
Right.
So Colony kind of brings up a very, you know, interesting conundrum of, you know, is this morally right to do this? Does the fact that we can achieve something scientifically mean that we should do it?
Right.
Or are there certain boxes that that we are duty-bound morally to leave closed? And then the whole concept of playing God and things like that. And so this is a very, you know, it's kind of sci-fi, you know, whatever, but it's a very challenging thing when you really think about it, because you really have to think to yourself, like, okay, because I'm sure there's some benefits to this, right? Like, for example, in warfare, you know, like if you could find a way to divest a person of all of their emotions. I mean, that's what a lot of these selection courses are designed to do. I mean, there's you know, there's stuff that people see and know about selection courses, but there's a whole other
there's gotta be
categories of training that these guys go through that people have no idea about. That's absolutely like Clockwork Orange level horrific, but it's, you know, it's pretty bad. So if you could suck the emotion out of a soldier, obviously that's going to, and you suck out all of his, you know, independent faculties and you kind of make him a machine, that's very, very convenient for
Oh,
people.
absolutely.
But so
Absolutely.
it's a very, very interesting debate. It sounds like a fun sci-fi movie or whatever, but it's really kind of.
What do you think is, in my world, I parachute my life?
In your world, you find me worthy. In my world, I parachute my life. Well, parachute is like, jumping out of a plane or whatever, and I think he's using that as to say he's trying to escape.
Oh.
So, because it says a virtual drugstore populated by the fathomless and unbearable. There they go again.
Because they're injecting him with stuff. Probably.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
all right.
and he's trying to escape. And then, in your world, you find me worthy. Maybe that's talking about like a worthy candidate because he's got good physical stock. Which the big homie Margaret Sanger used to talk about. That good stock, and then she'd talk about the human weeds that needed to be extirpated from American society, she says. But again, I'm not mad at Margaret Sanger because everybody was a eugenist in the 1920s. Again, the 1920s were also an example of what happens when you've got, just physics dominating with no metaphysical backstop to protect us from becoming crazy. So, 1920s, people were kind of feeling themselves and, we're advanced and we don't need any of this God stuff and we know what we're doing and we figured out the algorithm to evolution and we're going to jumpstart natural selection. I talked to one of my friends one time and he goes, that's artificial, you can't do that. He's like, it's wrong because it's artificial to jumpstart natural selection. You've got to let nature do it, not man-made. And I said, my brother, according to you, all there is nature. So even if a man did it, it's still a form of evolution. There's no free will. There's no, you're talking about human beings as if we're some separate group. Now, obviously, from a Christian worldview, that absolutely works, but it doesn't work in yours. You're just graduated ape, and it just so happened that natural selection functions to give that ape the idea to manipulate the gene pool with eugenics, and that's also part of it. And he said, he said to me, this guy is usually a pretty belligerent guy. I mean, we're friends, but he's a pretty belligerent. I'm not going to mention who he is, but he said, yeah. I'm sure there's an answer for that. I'll get back to you. And that, he's never done that before. And I wasn't trying to be a jerk.
That's good.
That happened. We had that conversation 3 years ago, and I might bring it up to him later and see.
Perhaps he's gotten an answer after 3 years.
He'll probably just insult me because that's how he is. That's our love language, me and him.
Oh, sounds nice.
Yeah, I met him before I met anybody in the village. This was like years, actually, when I came back from Houston.
Oh, wow.
That was the time it was me, and I had those 4 atheists in the debate, and it was me versus them and all of that. And the girl was like, don't let him speak! Shout out, no, I can't say his name. But he's a good friend of mine. All right, what do you get the song?
It's a 9.2 for me. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the energy. I enjoyed just the way that they did it. And honestly, I really think I love the crowd. Putting myself in there.
Yeah, I know. That was my favorite thing about the song. Quite frankly, I wasn't necessarily like a giant fan of the song because I was expecting it to get super melodic and it didn't, which is okay. But the energy of that crowd, man,
right.
that is absolutely.
That's what kind of kept tweaking it up.
And his energy, that is absolutely going to factor into my score.
So what's your score?
I have that right. I'm going to give this a 9.3. 9.3.
Well, you're going to one-up me.
Love the energy. You want to get a 9.2?
That's what I already said.
You did?
All right.
You're such a liar. That's the same thing you said about that other thing.
Yeah, whatever. Thank you, Andreas. Sorry, out.
Gone.
Superior self, controlled by a sense of bliss, incomparable. shore, populated by the fathomless, empty of